Good evening. This is the Kentucky Welding Institute podcast, and with me tonight is Andreas Kariotis. He's got a heck of a story. Born and raised in Maine, New Gloucester, Maine. Found Kentucky Welding Institute. He's got some Air Force in between, and right now he's coming to us tonight from Mountain Home, Idaho. So right off the rip, you got to be feeling the story coming out of this guy, having been, again, on opposite ends of the spectrum of the United States. But Andreas, I'm going to turn to you. What was it like growing up in New Gloucester, Maine?
Yeah, so growing up in New Gloucester, Maine, you know everybody. Our town was like a few thousand people. My grandparents, if I didn't know them, my grandparents knew them. Their kids went to school with their kids and so on and so forth. Real small town, close-knit, kind of like Flemingsburg, Kentucky, honestly. Like, yeah. It was a pretty small-knit community, close-knit community. But yeah, just played in the woods a lot and just were always dirty and outside doing stuff. So it was a good time.
Now, before we jumped on, I was talking about my family took a vacation. We went up to the New England states to do some looking around, I guess, exploring America. And we noticed and did some study on this, historically wise, a lot of the houses, a lot of the old-time houses in Maine are large. I guess you had a lot of your nuclear family, but also your extra family in that one house maybe. And then the barns were built really close to the house. And then a lot of times there was like a little breezeway or something built, like essentially where you walked from the house straight into the barn. Is that right?
That is right. Yeah, so I didn't even know growing up that was unique. Like all the houses, especially like my buddies, we always would be playing in the barn, and the barn was attached to the house. That was just how it was there, and I didn't even know why it was like that, but it makes sense that it has to do with the climate, you know, the cold winters and stuff, and you wouldn't want to walk, you know, half a mile to your barn if you don't have to. So yeah, it makes sense. And then we have a lot of like weird little lingo up there that people other places don't use, which I didn't know either until I left the area. But yeah, so definitely harsh winters up there for sure.
And then what did you get into? You said you played around outside a lot during those harsh winters. What's that like? The majority of us, I guess, in Kentucky, when we finally do get our snow, we grab our bibs and our sleds.
Right.
But for you guys, I guess some of that's got to be rinse and repeat as far as like half the year, I guess.
Yeah, growing up, I mean, you're kind of, it's like once winter kicks off, it's like all hands on deck. Like I remember my grandfather was always plowing. Now they have people to plow for them, you know, they're older. But so we'd always be it's a part of life. You got to help shovel. Everyone's helping shovel. All the boys. I have 2 brothers and 1 sister. Everyone's out there shoveling. Everyone's plowing. And then if Grammy and Grandpa's yard's not done, you're going to go help with that. But yeah, I remember growing up in the winters and stuff, especially like my grandfather would push all the snow into one massive, like, you know, 15-foot mountain. We thought it was a mountain. Obviously, living in Idaho now, I know it wasn't a mountain. But and then making igloos in there and stuff. And believe it or not, we used to dig out the bottom and then carve it all out, and we could fit like 4 or 5 of us kids in there and have a little fire in there. So
right,
yeah, it's kind of wild, yeah.
So good times. Yeah, we don't get nearly that kind of snow. I think we do some playing, I guess, build a snowman or whatnot, maybe go down some of the hollers here in Kentucky, but nothing like what you're talking about.
Right.
And then agriculturally, it's different. I mean, and you're seeing some, again, opposite ends. You come to Kentucky, you see maybe some beef cattle, some horses, some bluegrass, hay, tobacco. I'm not quite sure what you're looking like in Idaho. I'm guessing potatoes, I hope. I don't know. And then ranches. But agriculturally, what's it like in Maine then?
In Maine, I feel like, because we used to go moose hunting every year. Not every year. But in Maine, the moose hunt is a lottery. So if anybody in the family gets a tag, it's a big deal, and you're all going. And we used to go up north and hunt moose. And up there, it's a ton of, you know, just potato ag everywhere. They even, I think this is still true, they get like 1 or 2 weeks off of school in those counties to help with the potato harvest because it's such a big deal. But where I'm from directly, I'm like an hour or so outside of the city, and there's not a ton of ag there. There was a few like small little, you know, family-owned operations, but nothing major. So ag in the sense of like where you go to Flemingsburg, Kentucky, and you see ag. In Idaho here, there's tons of ag just in general around, but it's not for human consumption here. It's all for animal feed and stuff like that. But I didn't grow up around big ag at all, not ranching either. So yeah, it was definitely an experience being in being in Kentucky and seeing what that's all about.
Now you're pretty close to the Atlantic, though, up there in Maine, right? I mean,
Oh yeah.
Any background with fishing or boats or that kind of stuff?
Yeah, we're definitely a big fishing family. My dad, he's a Maine State guide, so he got that after I left the house, but he takes people guiding on the ocean, takes people fly fishing, all that kind of stuff for big lake trout even in freshwater. But yeah, my brother too, he's gotten real big into it. Obviously as a kid, you don't have like the money to be going buying big boats and stuff, so we'd always be goofing around on the lakes with like little John boats and stuff like that.
Yeah, right on, right on. So high school, what was high school like? Any high school sports?
Yeah, so high school for me was all sports. I used to do track just to like stay in shape, that kind of deal, but my big sport was basketball. And it was all in all the time. My parents put a lot of time and money into letting us go as far as we wanted with it. And that was everything really was basketball.
Nice. And then had to get a lot of work ethic, I think, growing up in Maine and doing all that snow shoveling. And again, if you're committing to track and basketball, again, it sounds like you grew up with a heavy helping of work ethic.
Yeah,
just
absolutely.
raised doing, staying busy, staying on your feet.
Yeah, absolutely.
Right. So you didn't go immediately to welding after high school. What was next for you?
So next step, at 18, I joined the Air Force. I was in the Air Force for about 6 years. I was a one-term contract, then I extended and got out, so it was just shy of 6 years. Yep, that was the next step, and then shortly after, the second oldest brother joined, and then shortly after, the youngest brother joined. So all three of us were active duty at the same time.
Now, if I'm not mistaken, I think I went to Afghanistan back in 2007 or 8, I guess. But we flew to Maine first, and then got on and made the big trip.
Yeah, I think Bangor, Maine, I think is where y'all fly to.
All right, it sounds right. All right, so in the Air Force, what like I assume like the Army, you've got MOSs. What was your occupational skill there?
Yeah, my job first was when I signed up, I waited for about, I think it was 6 or 7 months because I wanted to do medical. And nothing came open. And then finally I got to a point where I was like, you know what? I'm just going to go and just do it and figure it out So I was literally calling my recruiter to tell him, hey, I'll do whatever. I don't care. And he was like, actually, someone just got pregnant. They had to back out. And so I was able to get a slot for NO, which is medical technician. So I went in, signed up for medical technician, and then once I got to basic, did that whole deal, they were like, hey, we're having tryouts for, it's called the Honor Guard, the U.S. Air Force Honor Guard. So if you've ever watched like the inauguration or a funeral in Arlington, those are the people doing it. And so I signed up for that, tried to do it. You have to like pass a bunch of requirements, height, vision, all that kind of stuff. And I was able to get picked up for that, so I did that for my first few years in the Air Force. That was great. Yeah, great
awesome.
time. Yep.
So what does this put you at age-wise? You got into the Air Force 18 years old then, and you stayed?
Yeah, and so I think it was about 3 years in the Honor Guard, which was in Washington D.C. So I did that. I was a pallbearer, so one of the ones who carries the caskets. Did that for about 3 years, then went to Texas, retrained to be a medical technician, and then that's when I ended up in Florida next, and then back to where we're at now is in Idaho.
So you said Arlington, lots of DNC then, like drill and ceremony. You were tight.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Attention to detail is everything, you know.
Yeah, staying locked up and I don't
exactly.
I don't know that I could do it. The DNC and basic was enough for me as far as dress right dress and dressing cover.
We had some 4-hour stands like on some big ceremonies, change of commands, and everyone does their speech. And I think the longest was about 4 hours where you're standing, you can't move, you're just locked up.
Yeah, very wild. And then, so help me out. What is medical technician? You went to Texas to train medical technician. What does a medical technician do?
So we're kind of, the way that, at least in the Air Force it's put, is being a medical technician, or a 4N as we call it in the Air Force. It's a great job because you can do a ton of stuff. But as far as like licensure, you don't have if you meet an X-ray tech in the Air Force, it's the exact same certification as it is in the civilian world. But medical technicians, the only certification we have is an EMT. So on paper, we're just an EMT, but as I'm sure you're familiar with, the scope of like a Army corpsman or a Navy corpsman or a Army combat medic, they can do a lot more stuff inside the bounds of the military than they can in the outside.
Right.
And so same kind of thing applies to a medical technician. So we could be doing anywhere from working in a clinic to taking vitals and just assisting the docs, or you can, I was actually, it's kind of funny, I was a labor and delivery technician, so I helped with that whole deal. And that was kind of, it sounds crazy because you're like, as a guy, you're like, that sounds insane. But I learned a lot from it. Like, it was a hurdle to have to get over, you know what I mean? Because just being a guy in a, I mean, pretty much predominantly women career field, along with the whole event that's happening is mainly focused on the woman in the situation. So you just gotta, learn what to say and when to say it and how to say it, and just, tiptoe around those things. So it really was a good learning experience looking back.
So you're saying delivery.
Yeah. Like
delivering babies.
Like you, how many kids do you have? Do you have kids?
I've got three kids.
Three kids, and you were there for the deliveries. So, like the nurses that are there,
I missed my second one. I was actually mobbing up for Afghanistan. Yeah, and he came early.
I missed my son's delivery because I was driving back from KWI.
Right.
Me and a buddy were outside of one of the KWI houses tinkering on my truck, and my wife's like, "Hey, I'm going into labor." And I was like, it was about 14-hour drive to Florida. So, yeah, gotcha. I missed it by a few hours. But yeah, so labor and delivery. So, like, I mean, everything from helping clean up after to literally holding the towel and catching the baby, bringing him to the warmer, getting everything good to go. So, everything from all that stuff that you see in the movies, that you see in deliveries. Yeah, it's pretty interesting.
So, before we mobbed up, I went as a combat engineer. We did route reconnaissance, essentially just removing the IEDs and stuff out of in front of the 101st Airborne Division. But we all had to be combat lifesavers, so we went through a pretty extensive course where I don't know, for about a week we just practiced sticking each other, and you just got sick of it. Your arms are all scarred up because we're all just learning. Right. It seems like a pretty weird way to do things, I guess, but you know how that is, big army. So.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So I can relate a little bit. Now, combat lifesavers were much higher than just a combat medic was much higher than just a combat lifesaver. That's pretty much all we were taught to do is put some fluids in somebody. Mm-hmm. Yeah, a combat medic would have been like a paramedic as far as what they. But yeah, as soon as they get out, as soon as they take that green suit off, nothing counted on the civilian side.
And I feel like that, like the name combat medic that's attached to the Army medics makes sense because every combat medic that I met in training and stuff was mostly in the ER, and they were doing a lot more high speed medicine where they were using their skills that they would learn to go to combat. Whereas I feel like the Air Force, they have people that are specially trained for that, like you have ambulance services or EMTs that are going to paramedic school for that specific thing. But as a whole, I feel like the Air Force is more training people to like be working in a hospital or a clinic all around, more so than like being on the front lines and doing like combat medicine as much. I think that's just a big difference between the two.
Yeah, very cool. All right, so you said you wrapped up in Florida with the Air Force career, is that right?
Yep, that is correct.
And then where's that at in Florida?
Right outside of Destin. The base is in...
Nice.
I think the base is in technically, what was the name of the town? Rizzo maybe? Something like that. But yeah, right outside of Destin. If you look up Eglin Air Force Base, it's right there. It's a big base.
So you're like 22, 23, and already Maine to Texas, down to Florida. And then where do you meet your wife at? Where does that come into play?
Yeah, we actually met on labor and delivery on the unit. Like we both worked there, that whole deal.
So she's same MOS as you are in the Air Force.
Yep, right. And she's actually still active duty. Yeah, she's still active duty, which is why we're in Idaho now.
Nice. So you get out, you ETS. That's what you guys. I assume you call it ETS in the Air Force as well, right?
PCS.
And then what's next for you? Is this where you come into KWI?
No, I got out in August of 21. And then went to KWI directly. Like I got out and was at KWI like 2 weeks after I got out in August. In Florida.
And what sparked this? So originally you wanted to get into the Air Force and you wanted this medic spot. You were waiting. You were going to call up and take anything. The spot opened up. You finally got what you wanted. Mm-hmm. So you're getting out in Florida. What sparked the welding interest?
The welding interest for me was I like to work with my hands in general, as a lot of young guys do and stuff. But when I kind of weighed my odds with like the trades in general, that was really what I was looking at first when I got out, was the trades. I know that when it comes to like lineman stuff, it's not a guarantee. And I just liked the fact that first and foremost, KWI is an accredited place. You're leaving there with certifications. That was my favorite thing. It wasn't like you were leaving with you can go take this certification test. You were, if you passed the test, you get the cert right then and there. So I thought that was pretty cool. And I really went back and forth on it. Obviously, I was in Florida and Kentucky was just, little ways north. But I knew that we were going to end up in Idaho at some point, and so I looked into what's the other one? There's another school over there. I'd looked into other schools, but I just felt like as a whole, when it came to just being well-rounded, KWI was the best fit for me personally. And when I say well-rounded, I mean in the sense of like, it just seemed like when I was seeing interviews with people that went there, they were talking about how great the instructors were, the church group on Sundays, that whole kind of deal. And that's just, that's like the above and beyond kind of stuff that not a lot of places offer. How, obviously, I went to KWI, so I know this, but maybe everybody listening won't, but that you can also, if you're on first shift, you can go to second shift and get extra time. Like that's just invaluable to me. That's just the more you want to work, the more you can work, just hone your craft kind of thing. So.
And if you're from Maine and you're used to shoveling snow all winter, it's right up your alley then, man. Yeah. Mm-hmm. So help me understand. So your wife's still in Florida then. She's going to stay and continue to serve down there. And at this point in time, you guys are, and are you married at this point?
We were newly, and we had just found out, like, I think it was maybe 2 weeks. I said, all right, I'm getting out. I'm going to welding school. And it really came down to the wire because this was also during the whole COVID kind of deal. The COVID thing was still kind of going on. And she brought me into our little, like, computer room, kind of like where I'm sitting now, but in Florida. And she was like, hey, we're having a baby. And I was like, whoa. And so then it kind of brought me back because I'm like, well, this is sink or swim. We got to figure this out. Am I going to stay in or am I going to get out? And she was like, just go for it. So she was totally supportive and just said, just head on up to Kentucky, and she'd let me know when to head home.
Now, small side quest here, but you got my wheels turning. So you're from Maine, typically speaking. That's probably more of a liberal type of state. I think it would float blue on most elections. Kentucky's sort of more of a red.
Sure.
And then you're also a medic. And I know right now, you're talking about Florida, right now it's hot in Florida. I think the governor just passed that no more are they going to give shots to babies automatically. Like we're almost anti-vax now. So talk to me about growing up in Maine. What are your thoughts and feelings on this as a whole?
Yeah, so it's like hard because I feel like politics in the past, I don't know. I don't know if it's politics have gotten more heated lately in the past maybe 10 years. Or if it's just because the past 10 years was when I was like really an adult and was paying attention. But I had the lucky opportunity to be raised in a very conservative, religious household in Maine, which again, going back to the Barnes, I thought that was just everybody was on the same page. I didn't know any better. I just thought that we were all in agreement. So yeah, I think that obviously I wouldn't categorize myself in some of those groups of folks in Maine now. And Maine, I will say, has kind of gotten it's leaning more to that left side of things more and more. But what was the main basis of the question? I kind of got sidetracked.
Just what it's like, I guess, because Kentucky typically anymore anyway, the House and the Senate both bleed red. Our governor right now is Democrat, but and not that we're having to mix and mingle in the politics, but I'm just curious. Growing up, what's your worldview, I guess, on national scene? And then again, because you're a medic, I think it's pretty cool. You were in the delivery section, so I guess you were probably trained when that baby comes out. Then there are XYZ vaccinations that are happening, but right now on the media, Florida's doing away with all that.
Yeah,
and we're kind of getting to this anti-vax, like me growing up. But when I went to the military, you dropped your pants to your ankles and you got about 15 shots in the butt.
Right.
But I have no idea what they were shooting me up with, to be honest.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like I said, so I guess going back to that, we were raised very conservatively, very, in that way. We might have not gone to church every Sunday as like our family, just based on sports and stuff going on. But like my grandparents, if you ever wanted to go, you could go with them. And if you were going to Grammy and Grandpa's, they were going to be talking about, God in some form. And that was just how we grew up. So I think that kind of follows you, and everybody has their own path to that. But when I was also getting out of the Air Force, that was when they were mandating the vaccines for all active duty. And it didn't come down to where I had to say I'm getting out because of the vaccine or not, but they tried to give it to me before I got out, and I was like, well, I'm getting out, so I'm not going to get this. So I was lucky enough to not have to get it. But yeah, I don't know. You see kind of both sides of it, especially in Florida. Florida was pretty on the conservative side of things as far as COVID was going, But some people, like when we'd help with the baby, two of the medications that we would give the babies were for blood clotting factors and for their eyes. And some people wouldn't even want that. And if they didn't, it was no problem. It wasn't a big push, to do that whole deal. But yeah, I don't know. I think that time we saw a radical overshift, and I think that we're going to see it start to tip back the other direction.
Yeah, the whole thing, just bring up the COVID, floods back all those memories. I think the state of Ohio started giving out scholarships. Like if as a student, if you went and got your shot, you would enter in a scholarship.
Right.
At the school district locally in Fleming County, they were giving $100 bonuses, trying to motivate or mandate teachers to go. And it just felt way too government pushy. And I was like,
it's weird. It's
so
weird.
all my conservative alarms went off, and we never did get vaxxed at all, because it just seemed entirely too interesting to a bunch of people that I somehow get vaccinated. And I don't, again, understand how me getting vaccinated protects you if you're already vaccinated. So it seemed awful. Yeah, the whole thing seemed wild to me.
And we've seen now like because that was like it was being like guilted into like you need to get vaxxed to protect other folks. And then it kind of now, as the curtain's kind of been pulled back, that was completely not the case at all. And my mom actually, she got the first round of the Johnson & Johnson, and I can't remember, because she was going back and forth, like, should I get it? Should I not? Like, I don't feel like I need to, but she just did. It was in that cloudy phase of like it wasn't a big deal yet, and she got the first round of the Johnson & Johnson, and then before she could even get the second, it got pulled for causing huge blood clots. And it's like, okay. And so she just was like, all right, I'm good. I don't need one. So I don't know. It's just weird. It's just weird.
Such a wild time for sure. And I feel like a lot of things are that way now too. You talked about how it seemed like they were essentially gaslighting you into you didn't want to hurt other people type stuff. And I feel like we're in that victimhood mentality where we don't want to offend anybody. We constantly want to, and we get that pressure, and that's only here recently. In the last 10 years, it's a really it's a powerful political tool, I think, anymore, to somehow make me feel guilty and try to play to my empathy.
Right.
Yeah,
I agree.
Yeah,
I agree.
But just getting back to old school, I guess I think the government should defend us, create a couple good rules, and then stay out of my way. Be honest.
Stay out. Yeah, that's probably just a good baseline to be at.
All right, man. So my bad. Again, side quest altogether. So now your pregnant wife, newly married, she's down in Florida. You're heading to Kentucky Welding Institute, and that was about a 6 month stint for you. What was that like?
Yeah,
and I'd be curious, because anytime I get a military guy, I'm curious on like that, because you went through some tough stuff, I guess. I don't know what the basic training for Air Force looks like, but what was it like to get in the routine, I guess, of KWI?
Yeah, so I think it was pretty. I guess for me, like coming directly from the Air Force to KWI, maybe. And I was working in a hospital too, so you got to remember that. I wasn't like in the dorms and, out PTing every morning. We were just working like 12-hour shifts and then you go home. 12-hour shifts and you go home. So the 12-hour shifts for me at KWI weren't a big deal because I was used to doing that. But I liked the structure of KWI. It's like, okay, here's what we're doing. Now let's get after it. And that was it. Realistically, if you wanted to waste your money and go to KWI to really do nothing, you probably could do that. Because it's kind of hands off. Like, it's up to what you're willing to put into it. And that was one of my favorite things, was that the harder you're willing to work, the more you're going to get out of it. And the instructors were also, if you saw someone goofing around, the instructors weren't going to they weren't going to let you goof around, but they weren't going to babysit you. So if you wanted to sit there in your booth and waste your time and burn 4 rods in a shift versus the guys who are getting after it and welding and then cutting and welding. It's just, that's like the whole picture for me that I really enjoyed, was that the instructors are there to support you and show you what's going on, and when you have trouble, they're going to help you. But realistically, what you're doing is learning to weld and just following instructions from them as they tell you to do it. But yeah, the structure was good, and it was There wasn't any tomfoolery going on. It was like, wake up, get your food ready to go in, come home. It really, other than being at a school, it felt like it was just working a shift, and we were just welding pipe.
Yeah, we like to consider it, maybe it feels more like a job than a school. And I like the fact that you're recognizing that there's not a lot of, like you said, tomfoolery. A lot of weld schools are offering that flash, and we appreciate that, actually, because the types of people who are attracted to that need to go somewhere else.
Right.
Like you're saying, they don't really work. That dog doesn't hunt at KWI. Our instructors are passionate about working, and they do. They're sort of magnetized towards those students that are, have goals and are pushing forward. We tend to huddle up with those guys and keep driving with them. Yeah. Yep. So, favorite instructor, who do you feel like did you the best or pushed you hard? Is it?
I'm not going to say one, but my two favorite, because they were the two leads for ours, were Landon and Blake. They were both great. Both great in different ways. Blake, and if he hears this, will laugh at this, because he has a very tough love kind of approach. Like, I think I might have seen him smile like maybe 4 times the whole time.
Right.
But when he tells you something, he means it, and he's like, that looks terrible. Do it again. All right, it looks terrible. But if he tells you, looks all right, it might look all right. You know what I mean? So you're trying to pick your battles, and like, okay, he said this looks okay. Now what can I do to make this great? And then if he'd walk in and look and not say anything, then you're trying to figure out, does it look great? Does it look all right? But yeah, so they both had very different, learning style or teaching styles, because Landon would come in there if you had a problem with something. Like, one thing that I had problem with was Inconel. I just was awful at it, that and copper nickel. And Landon would sit in there until I got it dialed. And obviously he might get pulled away to help other students and stuff like that were messing up their own stuff. But he was like, he'd be in the trenches with you. Like, all right, you're doing this wrong. Now what can we do to get over this hump? And then I'm sure you know how it is. Once you figure out like something very small that you're doing that might be ruining your entire weld, then it's like, okay, don't do that. I need to adjust here. And then from there forward, you can really get reps in and practice like the correct way. And that. So yeah, Landon and Blake were great. I really liked them.
All right. And you mentioned a little bit of the Bible study and whatnot. I don't know if you heard this. We just added a gym.
No
so
way.
We opened up right across the road. There's a 4,000 square foot, and it's autonomous. It's 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. But really just trying to hone in, kind of like you said, we're separating ourselves. We care about you guys, mind, body, and soul. And a lot of the guys kept asking, everybody has to drive 20, 30 minutes to Maysville or Moorhead for a gym. So we looked at it and invested, and now the students have hammer strength. It's sort of a meathead gym, a lot of free weights and a couple cables and stuff. But yeah, it's right up their alley and available to them. And like you said, you sleep and meal prep and then go to weld, and now you can blow off some steam, maybe an hour or two in the gym. And
yeah, exactly.
Yeah, very cool.
Yeah.
So, and we mentioned this a minute ago because we both talked about missing one of our child's birth. So at KWI, you get the phone call. Where were you at in the program? How deep were you?
Oh, I was like right at the end. I think I ended up graduating with 13 certifications. And I think the day I got the call, because again, going back to what I was horrible at, the copper nickel was not my friend at all. And usually it was like, okay, you get your core, I think at the time, I don't know if it still is, it was like core 6 or 7. And then you kind of have free reign, go do whatever extras you want. And a lot of people, like my buddy Spencer, he graduated a little bit before me. We were there most of the time together. And he got his core group done and then went like this. And I, instead of doing it like that, waited to the last second to do copper nickel because it was so tough for me. So I think that it was either that day or very, very shortly before I had just gotten my copper nickel. And so I was just kind of looking at some other, more flashy type certifications to look at for the last few weeks. And then like I said, I mean, when I tell you I got the call working on my truck, like I was head in the engine bay and she's like, hey, I think my water broke. And so I pulled up next to the house in my truck and just started hucking everything in there and just hit the road. I think I had called, I don't remember if I called Lindsay because I had to let someone know I just headed out. And I think I called Lindsay, and I don't even think I made it into the school to say, hey, I'm heading out. I think I just called and was like, hey, my wife's in labor, I gotta go. And It was, again, going back to just doing stuff right and taking care of people. Like, they were like, whoever I talked to, whether it was Lindsay or the other receptionist, it was, yeah, you're squared away, good to go. Come back up here and we'll do your whole, like, give you the certificate, all that stuff. And it was no problem. So that's cool because you could just imagine where, like, that might have not been that smooth at some places, and then you're having to, like, worry about it. Like, am I going to get my certs? And it's just, it wasn't anything to be worried about. So that was great.
Yeah, well, priority-wise, it's family, and then, the rest comes later. So, yeah, we tend to prioritize with that. Yeah, absolutely. And at this point, she's down in Florida. So 64 and then 75 south, and you're just burning up the roads.
Yep, burning up the
roads. So you get there, what was that like? Obviously, he made his arrival, right, your son, before you got down there. But what was the emotion? Yeah. What was that? Yeah.
Yeah, so luckily my wife was active duty, so she had some, support around. So her best friend was there, which I don't think that she would swap for me, but as a replacement to be there, at least she had somebody. So I was super grateful for that. Right. Yeah, and she actually called me while my wife was, doing the whole thing. And so I could hear, and then she's like, the baby's here. And I didn't hear the cry. You're always waiting for the cry. And then I finally heard the cry. And this is while I'm driving. I think I had about 2.5 hours to go. And so then that was probably the longest 2.5 hour drive, just waiting to get there. And then I walked in literally in a sweatshirt that I'd been wearing, working on the truck, this big vest that I would weld in that was just filthy dirty.
Right.
And I walked in and she was like, what are you wearing? Like, this is crazy. But yeah, it was just surreal, especially because I feel like as a dad, you like the actual delivery is like your time to really be like, oh, this is really happening. And I didn't get that. I just was like driving, and then I show up and there's my son. So, but he was a month premature. So he was supposed to, stay in there until I graduated. I was going to be back just in time to get everything situated and get to the hospital, but he wanted to come a little early. So
yeah, I mean, it's wild how it lines up, because that's exactly how it happened with my son. Of course, it was my second, but he came a month early. And as a matter of fact, they had to put him in the NICU and put him in one of those little those glass bubbles or whatever for a while. And I actually blew up a Hummer coming. We were mobbing up down in Western Kentucky. Again, same type of deal. And I think I came as close. Yours was much better. 14 hours, and you had it down to less than 2. I mean, Mama was trying for you. She was trying to hold it.
And like I said, I worked on labor and delivery, so everybody knew that I was coming. They knew who I was. They knew where I was coming from. And they were like, we're going to try to slow roll it as best we can. And it just wasn't in God's plan, but that's fine.
Yeah. All right, so you take a little bit of time there. Mama and baby are good. Graduate KWI. What's next in the life?
Yeah. So what was next? Pretty much, because in the Air Force you get a few months of baby leave, is what we call it.
Sure.
A maternity leave. So she was home with him, and I think it was maybe a week or two. I just hung out at the house, got everything situated.
Take care.
Tried to adjust. Right. Yeah, exactly. And then shortly after, I picked up a job in, where was that? Panama City, Florida was when I picked up my first job. And that was, I think, maybe less than a month out of school. Went down there, welded at a shipyard for a little bit until she had to go back to work. And then I had to come home and play dad.
All right. And then where else then? How long did you stay on the road? Or how much welding have you done since then, I guess?
Since then? Yeah.
I'm sorry.
Yeah, fast forward. So pretty much it was, I think, from that point when I came home, because I was at the shipyard for a little bit. I can't remember exactly how long. But until her maternity leave was up. And then I came back and we found out we were going to Idaho. So it was like, okay, we got to start packing, get everything squared away. And then I got here after a few months, because we got here in, when was that? June of 22, I believe, was when we got to Idaho. And so that was, and then just getting everything settled in, getting him into daycare and stuff like that. All the not so flashy fun stuff. And then after that, got a job at a shop here local in town for a few months.
And have you found, again, as your wife moves from Florida to Idaho, welding is sort of evergreen? You're able to find something?
It was tougher to find. There's a lot of shops around here. I know while I was in KWI program, I was given the opportunity to go weld at a local shop. I can't remember the name of it, but you'd probably be familiar with the shop that I'm talking about.
Black's Welding maybe, or Applegate's?
I think it was Applegate's, actually. We were just welding huge ladders, like massive ladders is what we were doing. I don't know what for, but anyway. So yeah, shops like that, just small operation fab shops and stuff like that. There's a lot around Idaho. But other than that, it was looking a lot like pipelining and doing that whole deal, when I graduated, I felt pretty experienced and pretty ready to go. But as far as pipelining, I did not. That was like, there's a whole nother world to that deal. And so I wasn't able to get a foot in the door anywhere with that.
Yeah, the jump from single hand to pipeline is a pretty good gap. And most, I guess, the way Instagram sells it, everybody thinks they're going to be a pipeliner.
Yeah.
Man, you got to set yourself up with a $80,000 rig and a $20,000 welder, and there's a lot to that, a lot of tools and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, we and you know this, we promote that the first 2 or 3 years anyway, you just single hand and try to save for all those assets it's going to take to be a pipeliner. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely.
So you guys have been in Mountain Home for the past 3 years then, right?
Mm-hmm.
And if I'm pacing this right, then is your wife, is she getting ready to move again? I mean, the op tempo in the Army was about every 3 years. What?
Yeah. So we're trying to drag our feet because I'm in nursing school right now. We're trying to hopefully, I have 2 years left. So we're trying to drag our feet as much as we can to hopefully let me finish my school here, because that would be a headache to have to, switch everything around and try to get into another school. But yeah, so we're trying. But it's probably coming up at some point here quick. Yeah.
So you've lived a pretty full life then. Air Force medic, welder, and now back into nursing. What has caused you to gravitate back into the medical field?
Yeah, so for me, and this is kind of part of the reason why I was like eager to jump on here and chat, was because people would talk to me maybe and be like, you went to welding school right out of the Air Force and then you didn't really do it as much as you could have and all that stuff. But pretty much just for what was I going to say? Because I was able to secure quite a few weld tests out here in the Pacific Northwest. It was just, they were pretty far. And for me personally, I was like I remember this specific one. I think it was a job it was either Montana or Oregon, because, they kind of all get crossed up. And I had packed all my stuff. I had my bag ready to go. And I looked back at my wife and I was like, am I going? Am I going to go and I'm going to just do this thing? And she was like, go. And so she told me go, but something inside me was telling me don't go. Something about leaving my son that young just didn't sit right with me personally. There's a lot of people that do it and it works and that's great. But for me personally, it just didn't work.
Yeah.
And so that was kind of where that road ended. Now, that being said, I've also used my welding handful of times to fashion something up myself rather than bringing it to a shop to have to pay for it. Helped friends get out of real sticky situations with boat trailers. You know what I mean? So it's a good skill to have. But I wouldn't personally trade those experiences. If I knew, full circle, hey, you're going to graduate and work your butt off, to not be doing that as a job now, all these years later, I wouldn't trade it, because like you said, touching on the work ethic, you learn a lot in those moments, especially when your rod just won't stop sticking and you can't get something right and you're just having a heck of a day, but then finally you get it and you do it and it looks great. Those types of moments, I feel like, whether you're using it for a career or you're not, are valuable to have.
Yeah,
also,
very gratifying, yeah.
Yeah. And I think it is worth mentioning as well that someone that's looking to pay for this school, after high school, maybe wouldn't have that same outlook as me, but I was able to use my GI Bill. So it wasn't like I was out a bunch of money and was like, I need to make my money now, because, you know what I mean? And I'm not saying that I got lazy because of the GI Bill, but it allowed me to pivot, I guess.
Yeah, and you still got the skill. So regardless, right? You've got the medical skills, you got the welding skills, and the next 10, 20 years might be an ebb and flow between those two loves. Yeah.
Exactly.
Excellent. Now, I did notice on your Facebook there then too that you guys have traveled a bunch too. And so what's that been like? Has your son been overseas?
Yeah, so my wife actually just got deployed. When did she leave? Last September, I believe it was. And she got deployed to Germany. So it was a pretty lax as far as deployments go. And we were able to go out there and meet her for Christmas, which was a great opportunity. Not everybody that deploys gets that opportunity. So yeah, we were able to, and for anybody that knows me, I know you won't know this, but I hate flying with a passion. I cannot stand flying. And
you're in the
so
Air Force. You joined the Air Force.
That's what everyone says. I just hate it. But I made the long, what was it, like, I don't know, 14-hour flight over to Germany or whatever it was. Because from Maine to Germany is not that bad. It's pretty much just you're jumping over the pond. But from Idaho, we're on the whole other side of the country. So you're having to cross the whole country. And then, so anyway, so yeah, we were able to go out there for the holidays. I think we ended up staying for a few weeks. And our son was at the time, because that was right before he turned 3. He'll be 4 in January, this January coming up. But yeah, so we got to go see the Eiffel Tower, go to Switzerland, all the like touristy things to do. And I always
stuff.
Yeah, exactly. And it's funny because he was so young that he's gonna be like 12 years old and be like, I've never been there. What are you talking about? We'll show him a picture, of him there.
Right.
So. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, those are the ebb and flows of parenthood. You do all these cool things when they're super young and they don't remember it at all.
No, at all.
I have the picture. Look.
Right. Yep.
Yeah, so the fun times then. You mentioned 4 years old. Like he'll be starting 5 or 6. He'll be starting school, kindergarten. You guys are shaping right up.
Yeah, he's a ball of fire.
How has your faith served you? I guess I like to always pick people's brains. When you and your wife started dating and decided to get married, I'd imagine you guys had some of those longer conversations, Maybe it is, how do you vote? How do I vote? Or what is your faith in God? I always like to talk about this. The divorce rate in America is so high. I feel like it's because a lot of us, first of all, a lot of people aren't getting married anymore, and I think that's sad as well. But others are just rushing in, and they're basing that off of that attraction, that initial, and not really trying to decide whether we're going to work, whether we're going to be equally yoked as far as, so how did you and your wife come to that, that knowledge there of each other in the big topics, I guess?
Yeah. So we're from like such different parts of the world. My wife was born and raised until she was 6 years old in Mexico. That's where she was born and raised. And then she came here, did the whole thing, grew up in Texas, joined the Air Force, did the whole thing. And it's funny because when we met, I remember thinking like she's born and raised from Mexico, but she's one of the most like patriotic American people I've ever met. You know what I mean? So that's cool.
Texas, right?
Texas. Yeah, exactly. But yeah, I don't think, and that was, I think, part of what I thought was cool about the KWI Bible sessions. Because like I said, I had a foundation in Christ from a young age. Like it was around, but I wouldn't say that it was required in the sense of like forced. It was like, okay, here's what's going on. You can go at that at your own path if you want to. You know what I mean? And that's what I think is cool about like I said, the KWI Bible study is that it's not required, but it's there. And I mean, whether someone's walking in there because they want to seek Christ or walking in there because they want to indulge in the free breakfast, whatever the reason, that might be bringing them closer to that. You know what I mean? Yeah. And that's what I think is really cool. But yeah, to go back, I can't really. We had a pretty unorthodox beginning because it was like COVID. Everybody was huddled together. And I mean, to be honest, my wife and I just like, we went from like 0 to 100, like, and it was just like that. That was just what it was. And we were just like, all right, we're just going to be, we're just going to be together. But now looking back, we've been together for a total of 5 years, I think. And there's been serious, highs and serious lows. But it's just, I think kind of what you're getting back to, put a bow on this topic is that no matter what, like you watch like a Hallmark movie, no relationship looks like a Hallmark movie. There's gonna be moments where you walk in the room and your spouse or significant other is in there and you're like, gosh, I gotta go somewhere else. You know what I mean? It's just a part of life. But having those, like you said, having those hard talks and just pushing through, that's like what it's all about. Cause like when you're, and not to get super corny here, but when you're picking somebody else, you're picking them for life. And I feel like a lot of times now it's very easy and there's a lot of temptation around stuff. Like back in the day when my grandfather picked my grandmother, he didn't have a phone where he could just be like looking at, other options, I guess is the only way I can think to put it. So you could say like, oh, well, he didn't have all this temptation. But I guess the other side of that is that even though there is a lot more temptation, the world is a lot different now. It's just like sticking to who you choose and just going through the fire with them no matter what the fire looks like. You know what I mean? Because there's been times where, I felt like I fell out of a plane, the thing I hate, right? Skidded on the ground, and the only one there to pick me up was my wife. And vice
Absolutely.
versa. You know what I mean? And I think that's what it's all about. I think that a lot of times too, I'm seeing the kind of like with the COVID stuff, the radical shift from like people that are splitting up because they quit when it got hard,
Right.
and now they're like, I might have made a mistake because now I got to taste this other apple and it's not what I thought it was, you know?
Yeah. Yeah. No, you wrapped that up awesome, as a matter of fact. Yeah, I would go back to, in the Bible, love is a command. So it's not an emotion. If you can
It's
fall
not
in
an
love,
emotion.
then you can fall out of love. And yeah, once you take those marriage vows, that's a commitment for life, in my opinion. And kind of like you're saying, things are going to get tough. There are days, like you're saying, that I have to remind myself that I have to love my wife.
Yeah.
If she watches this, I think we're both going to be in trouble, man. But
Yeah.
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 But it's
Yeah.
real, right? It's real. There are days, but yeah, the way I see it, there is no out on the backside. I took a vow, as God is my witness, and in this covenant of marriage, and we're gonna see that thing through. Yeah, awesome, absolutely.
Yeah.
So I too was raised, I think, always around God, and my mom might get mad too, but religion wasn't necessarily required. And now, as a parent myself, we're much more intentional. Most of us are going to make our kids go to public school, but then we're going to give them options on their religion. I didn't think that, it didn't sit well with me. So yeah, for my kids, at least me raising them, they have to go to school, wake up, they have to go to church. I think this is
Right.
part of me being intentional. And there are things that I will shield my kids from because I don't want to expose them. I think we went through a time in America, or maybe still, we feel like we need to expose them to a lot of stuff. And I don't think that's my job as a parent. I think my job as a parent is to protect them
Right.
from evil and ignorance.
Right.
But how are you guys talking about your son growing up? And he's still young, so this is a beautiful time to think about being that intentional. As he grows up and hits those school years. When he gets to school, man, there's a lot of stuff he's going to be hearing, and in it,
Yeah.
you're not going to be there. You got to raise him up in the way he should go, and hope he sticks with it type stuff. What are your thoughts there?
Yeah, that's a tough one. And we've gone back and forth because kind of like what we were saying, the climate of America when it comes to a lot of these topics has gotten pretty crazy. And so crazy to the point where some people are going out of their way as teachers at a school to
Right.
like expose these kids because they think they should. And it's like that's really not your position to even, that's not like in your that shouldn't be in your purview of what you want a kid to know. That it like goes outside the bounds of what they should be learning in school. Now, I understand that like at school, I remember all the crazy stuff I learned from other kids, and that kind of is just what's going to happen. Those other kids are going to be raised different than them, and they're going to teach them
Sure.
some things. But yeah, I think it's kind of funny too because my son is that kid is in love with God.
Awesome.
He looks forward to his Bible story every night, and if I forget, he will not forget. Every night, every single night. He has he comes to church with us obviously every Sunday, and sometimes we get some hesitation at the door, not because he doesn't want to go, but because he doesn't want to like let go of my leg,
Sure.
But yeah, so I think getting him to a point where he feels confident to stand up for what he believes in.
Yeah.
And not in the sense that like if a kid says, because kids in school say crazy things, and they might say that Santa's not real. They might say that God's not real. And I just think that I need to teach him as his dad you don't have to argue with these people, but don't be afraid to speak like what you believe as well. And when someone says some crazy stuff, I want to have him where he knows like why we don't say those things and the way to correct those without being like vicious or negative. Because I feel like a lot of times now, even with adults on Facebook, you'll see a post and you might agree or disagree with the post, and then you look at the comments and you're like, all these comments, every one of them is just blasphemy. Like it's just like foolishness. And I think that that's what I don't want him to do. I don't want him to think that he needs to stand up for his beliefs in a foolish way, but stand up for them so that he can walk away from a moment of confrontation and just feel good about it. Like he said his piece and they said their piece, and it is what it is. And now at first, I mean, these are going to be like, small engagements on the schoolyard on like the monkey bars. You know what I mean?
Right.
Just raising him to be a confident, proud individual and not feel like he has to shy away from his faith or his beliefs in a world where it's much easier to hide that than to show it loudly.
Yeah, and kind of like we talked about as far as that gaslighting anymore, we feel like that, like I may disagree with you, but for some reason now I also have to condone your lifestyle. And to me, that doesn't make sense. I think it's okay that I can respect you, but also disagree with you. I shouldn't have to accept it. You don't need to shove it in my face and make me say that it's good or I just don't know why we can't agree to disagree on some of these topics.
Absolutely. Yeah, and I think that I think that especially people that are firm in their faith and are very passionate about their faith and views as a whole that might tag along to that. I think that like my wife and I just rewatched Passion of Christ the other night, the movie.
Nice.
And it just kind of reminded me, like, sometimes when you want to just like go at somebody on something that you disagree with or that whatever it is, and we like thinking what just came to mind was the story of Gomer and how she's crawling to the foot of Jesus and he was able to pick her up after everyone in the whole town wants to stone her because she deserves it, right? Like those types of things, like the people that might not be deserving of your forgiveness or you turning the other cheek, that could be the case, but sometimes that's the best case to have because otherwise it's just going to be detrimental to you and the other person. It's just not worth it,
Yeah. Not that you compromise your convictions, your values, your morals, but in the same way, be shrewd as a serpent, but gentle as a dove is what
exactly.
Jesus said. So yeah, and that's a tough balance, right? And raising those kids to discern that is tough. Heck, I still ask for that kind of wisdom on the daily. But yeah, it's the world's not making it any easier. I think, and I hate to spin you up this way again on another side quest, but I think we're getting awful dang close. And I know every generation says that, but man, the Jews have sacrificed the red heifer, that kind of stuff, the Temple Institute. Like, there's a lot of things pointing towards. I mean, if you look at the Abraham Accords and what it meant in the Middle East, there's a lot of signs. Yeah, I mean,
it's getting close. Yeah,
I think it's to be right.
And I mean, especially like you're seeing, I feel like as like we're kind of talking about a lot of the like negative side of things too. But I've seen a huge revival coming along. I'm sure you have as well. Like on social media, you see it like. Yeah. There's my wife and I sit in like the front because the church we go to is pretty large. It's in Boise, Idaho. So it's bigger than probably, a church in Flemingsburg. But the group that sits in front of us, it's like 30 kids, all that go to Boise State University, the school I go to.
Nice.
And it's just cool, to see like these 19-year-old kids. And I mean, they're the loudest and proudest in the building. And it's like, that's cool. Like you're seeing these kids that are very firm and proud of their faith. And they're ready to go. And, that's when you think about kids in college going to a party with a cross on their neck and they're telling everyone they're a Christian and people are going to be like, what are you talking about? That's crazy. You know what I mean? So it's just cool to see the opposite of all the craziness.
Yeah, you bring that up, and that's one of those pet peeves of mine. I wish you'd just take the cross off and not confuse everybody about what it is to be a Christian. You got to defend that witness, man. If you're going to identify it, then live it out. Yeah, but again, that just adds to the dynamic. I think anymore we're just getting so polarized in that either you're trying to tell me how to live this leftist lifestyle, or the elephant in the room is the Charlie Kirk movement essentially. Like that poured a lot of gas on the conservative fire because he lived so true and he wasn't afraid to tell truth in difficult situations. And again, if it offends, that's the truth of the gospel offending. That's not me. I'm just again just sticking to my convictions and what I know to be true. Yeah. And man, I think it's again. Maybe we're digressing still even too much, but I cannot for the life of me understand how, as an atheist, you think that makes any sense. Occam's razor says the simplest solution makes so you're still convinced that something from nothing, and that organization from chaos and life from non-life. Like you're trying to get me to swallow that pill, but you won't believe that in intelligent design that there has to be a creator. Heck, this may seem wild to you, Andreas, but I know you like tech and computers. I get on ChatGPT now and argue back and forth to sharpen my apologetics. And after about 30, 40 minutes, I can get ChatGPT to be like, yeah, if I was human, I'd probably be worshiping God because that's probably the safest bet, right?
Right. Yeah. Well, and I mean it's crazy too because like the whole thing, like we kind of touched on the second coming, and like I just seen something that was talking about I can't remember who it was by. I think it was a podcast called Rabbit Holes for Christ, but it's great. And
I'm gonna write it down.
It's great. And they were talking about how, they say in the second coming that he's going to split right down the Mount of Olives, down the center. And they look, and if you look on like a...
There's a fault line.
Yeah, and the plates, like that is directly right down the middle. And I'm just like, and I mean, you just think about, I mean, I'm probably going down a rabbit hole too, but I've just seen so many things, and I mean, it's obviously clear to us, looking through the lens that we look through, it's clear. Right. And so sometimes for other folks, it's not, but there's just like thing after thing after thing after thing, and you're like, okay, at what point do you need more proof or evidence? And obviously, like, they're just gonna make the choice one way or the other. But
yeah, and that's what the Bible says, right? I mean, they're gonna be blind and to the truth. And again, like you said, I don't force my Christianity. My God doesn't either. He could have made us all wind up robots. He gave you free will. Exactly. So I will keep speaking my piece, and I think, I would hope that an atheist would at least respect me in that manner, because if I truly believe that there is an afterlife and a heaven, and they're at risk of hell, how mean or how hateful do I have to be to not tell you about this gift that is Jesus Christ? Yeah. At least I hope, and I know that probably won't even land with some, but you got to give it to me there, that at least I want you in this, this heaven that is to come.
And that's the thing. I mean, I think you're hitting on a really important part, too, because I've reached out to some friends, that I maybe haven't talked to in a long time, that I see, their actions are a little bit foolish, or they're, they're just doing things that they shouldn't be, and that, like, they know they shouldn't be. You know what I mean? It's not like I'm sitting here judging anything. I'm just saying, like, hey, I know, like, there's better things ahead for you than this stuff you're involved in. And I've reached out and I, just sparked the conversation about religion as a whole. Like, do you have a faith? And I feel like sometimes to people it comes off as maybe pushy or like, why are we doing this? But if they only knew that, like, it's rooted in love. Like, if your kid looked at you and said, I don't want anything to do with this, it would break your heart because of the love that you have for your kids, and you want them to experience this eternal life like you. You know what I mean? And I think that's like when people reach out to somebody to try to share faith with them and try to get them closer to God or to come to God for the first time, it's from a place of love. It's not from I'm better than you, you should try this too. It's like, hey, I love you and I want you to be able to experience this like me and with me and through me and, all those things. It's just, I feel like that gets like clouded a lot of times when I see people like pushing back against it. And it's like, how about like just open up to it and be like you said about the atheist, like respect it at a minimum, Right. But yeah. And
unfortunately, some Christians come off entirely too holier than thou.
Yeah.
That you got to get your best friend or cousin cleaned up before he comes to church, and that ain't how it works. I can't clean anything. I just need to introduce you to my best friend, Jesus, and you two work it out. So if you got baggage, I'm all about it. Bring it with you. Yeah. We'll let Jesus work on that, because for a long time that was I guess that's my testimony. In Luke, the apostles, or Jesus asked the apostles, who do people say that I am? And I think I had miscategorized who Jesus was. Was he just a prophet? Was he a minister? Was he just a good man? That kind of thing. I wasn't quite sure, but to recognize that he is God and sacrificed himself for me, essentially that heavy made me want to get right before I came to the cross. And that's completely backwards too, because there's nothing I can do to work this off. It's Christ and Christ alone. So that's tough.
Yeah, you don't take a bath to get in the shower.
Right.
You get in the shower to get clean. And that's the thing. You got to go to him.
Yeah.
That's the only thing you can do. That's all there is. Yeah.
Excellent. All right, man. So wrap this up a little bit. Where you see, is your wife overseas right now?
Nope. She got back. She got back like 6 months ago or so. She's actually picked up our son, went to Walmart, buy a bunch of Christmas stuff. So
there you go. Getting ready for the season?
Yeah, I guess so.
Yeah. So how do you guys, she's from Texas, you're from Maine. So grandparents of your young son, how do you guys balance the holidays? What's that look like?
Yeah, it's pretty tough. My parents, in the past, what we do, and we started doing it when we had, the three of us brothers were in the Air Force. We started doing Christmas like a week early. So we'd all go to Maine. And it actually worked out because then all of our other relatives that had, 1 year they're here because of, their spouse, and then the next they're back because it's their turn. And so it kind of worked out because then we would just split it and everybody was able to go to both. So it worked out. That way, this year we went back for my dad's 60th, so we're gonna have our first like ever Christmas just us, just here, and Thanksgiving
nice.
obviously as well.
Yeah.
The holidays in general. Yep. And then as far as we've gone down, one year we did a double trip, Maine and then to Texas after. And then my wife was deployed for Christmas last year, so we didn't make it. I was in Maine, but she didn't make it. And then this year we're trying to figure out the logistics of it.
Yeah.
It's a balance.
A lot of balancing. Sure. Yeah, 100%. Yeah. And circling back around there just for a second, I often say this in the KWI Bible studies. I don't know if it lands because they're not parents yet. But being a father now, you completely understand much better your relationship with God. You know, his 10 commandments were, don't touch that hot stove. I want you to live your best life. Don't lie, murder, cheat on your wife. I want you to live your best life. It's not a bunch of rules keeping you from having fun. It's don't touch the hot stove, right? I mean,
right.
Yeah,
it does really resonate. Yeah, I feel like a lot of stuff, like from those experiences in the KWI Bible study to, like, I have flashbacks, I feel like daily, from stuff my parents would tell me that my son's like fighting me on, and I'm like, all right, we got to come up with something. It's just like, I feel like the one thing I didn't anticipate about being a dad was how much you learn about yourself from them. I mean, it's like crazy. I'm learning new stuff every day about myself from him. So
yeah, and you got to watch because they're gonna they pick up more of what you do over what you say. So you gotta again live it out because they're gonna start mimicking your actions. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Such a great thing. Such a great thing being a parent.
It is.
All right. What's the next 5 or 10 holding for you guys? Your wife, I guess, at this point, if memory serves me right, so she's got to be she's going to probably just make this a career, right? I mean, once you get past that 9th year or so, like, is she in it?
Yeah, we're trying to figure that out because I'm going to, like I said, I've got about 2 years left of school, and then we'll go from there. That's mission number 1. Right. But yeah, she's right about at 10 here shortly. So 10 left. She was looking into a few like commissioning programs, get her bachelor's as well, and then commission.
Nice.
But yeah, I'm not sure, and I don't even think if you asked her, she would know. We're just kind of like taking it one day at a time. But I mean, you know how it is. Like, staying in isn't really the worst gig ever. Obviously, like right now too, we're not, in a time of war, so it's not bad. And obviously on the Air Force side of things, we don't deploy as much anyway. But yeah, so we'll see. I don't know. We'll see. We're trying to figure out.
It's not bad. Retire at 20. I mean, you're still awful young. That's the big advantage of the military is, man, 20 years is not a long stint at all.
Yeah.
And was she in right at 18?
What's that?
Did she get right in at 18?
I think so. I think she had a similar situation as me because of the delayed entry program kind of deal. So I think she signed up at 18. She probably went in. It was either 18 or right at 19. Yeah, right around that, that young age.
So, man, to pull retirement before you're 40, that's not a bad gig at all.
Yeah, she's a workaholic, so even if she does retire at 20, she'll find something to do quickly after anyway. So
yeah. All right, man, Andreas, it's been a heck of a talk, man. I've enjoyed every second of it. We went 100 different ways. Wrapping this up, is there anything? I mean, to our listeners there, maybe you've got a young. And we're going to dot all over the globe. A young student in Maine, Texas, Florida, Idaho, thinking about welding as a career or their options. What would you say to somebody starting out?
I would just say don't, because I remember like when I was going, I remember being like, what's it going to be like? How much is real and how much is like all this kind of stuff. I would just say go in with the mindset of you're going there to work your butt off and get out of it as much as you can. Because even if you end up in a situation like I am, where I'm not currently welding,
right,
you still have the skill and all that. But even if you end up launching into the workforce, because I know I've seen the videos online, you guys have upgraded the simulators a ton. So it's like true work-like scenarios. You know what I mean? And just as... Maybe instead of if you get all your certs and you're squared away and you think you're good to go and you're working on your fancy beads, just pad and pipe, go hit the simulator and really like make do with your time. Because I know what was that fella's name? I cannot remember his name. He was a Filipino fella, phenomenal welder. And I think he got 8 certifications. So he didn't have as many certifications as me, but with his extra time, he was hitting the pipe simulator constantly. And by the end of it, when I was leaving, his welds in the simulator looked better than mine on the stand because he was just getting reps in those funny, goofy positions that you're going to be in the true workforce. You know what I mean? So I think that would be time well spent for sure.
Excellent, excellent. So you're saying if you're going to be about it, by gosh, be about it.
Be about it.
All right, sure. I like it. Andreas, it's been a heck of an hour, man. I enjoyed, like I said, every second of it, and appreciate you jumping on with us and sharing a little bit about what it is to live in your shoes. God bless you, your wife, and your son. I hope you have a wonderful Thanksgiving and a blessed Christmas.
You as well. Thank you.
You've heard it here at the KBI podcast.